Winning Blueprint presents.
In the lab room, the market.
Welcome to the market. You're in the lab room. I'm your host, Luke. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the market, the NFL's one-stop shop for all positions related to the field. And now we're here talking about the AFC West and what an interesting division it has been in this offseason, to say the least. And this is going to be a very compelling division throughout the 2013 season, but we're a long way from actually playing football on the field, and so we'll have to settle for just the off-the-field, off-season transactions that have really got us excited about this division. And again, it's been a while since we've been excited about West football, period. NFC, AFC West, both of these divisions in these respective conferences all of a sudden don't seem as bad as they once were. In fact, the NFC West, you could argue, might be the best division in all of football. And the AFC West is rounding into a very solid division of its own. And so if the Chargers can get back to respectability, if the Chiefs can dig themselves out of a hole that they really buried themselves in, maybe, just maybe, this division might be the best in the AFC. And we'll see. But this AFC West has been very, very interesting in this offseason so far. And there's a soap opera in Denver. They've been in the midst of many controversies that have been swirling around in free agency to this point. And the Chiefs, meanwhile, have stayed really clear of anything other than football-related activities, and they've been very active and very aggressive and very shrewd and very smart in all of their decision-making since getting Andy Reid and John Dorsey to take over their football operations over there. And so the Chiefs have really done a 180 in terms of personnel and the decision-making in Kansas City. Now, again, those moves that they've made in the offseason, you hope that they directly correlate and translate to wins on the field, but we won't know that until the upcoming fall. But for right now, it looks really good on paper for the Kansas City Chiefs. But let's talk about all these teams in the division. I've compiled a list of every team in the National Football League. I've split them up and divvied them up into divisions, and we're going to talk about them one by one, and we're talking about the AFC West. Here's a comprehensive spreadsheet that I put together with every team in the National Football League on it. And among the topics on this spreadsheet are players that were released, free agency signees. Then you have re-signees, the players that you keep and re-sign on your own roster. And then the players that you lost in free agency. And so those are the topics that we'll be discussing from this big board and my comprehensive spreadsheet that I put together. And so we'll start with the Denver Broncos in this division.
Denver Broncos.
And man, is there a lot to get to with this team, or what? They had a busy offseason to this point. They were very busy in the first week of free agency, which we're going to be discussing in this program. And look, man, I tell you what, we're going to start with the players released, and there's a lot to get to there. Let's just get to it. I mean, so hard to explain. It's a soap opera, like I've said, in Denver. It's just too much going on out there for a team that won 11 straight to end the regular season, looked like the front runners to make it to the Super Bowl from the AFC. There's too much drama right now in Denver. Let's talk about what's going on in Denver. And so we start with the players released. And look, you got to start with the guy that everyone's talking about. He's left the building. Elvis has left the building. We're talking about Elvis Dumervil. What a mess this situation has turned out to be. And when I first compiled this spreadsheet, I did it and I put Elvis Dumervil's name down and I put a question mark next to it as I put him in the release column. He hadn't been released yet, but I knew something wacky was going to happen with him. There was too much noise, and comments and different kinds of reports coming out of Denver about how this situation was being mishandled. And I knew something ridiculous was going to occur. And so I put his name down under the release column and put a question mark because I figured something like this was going to happen. Now, I didn't think it was going to be something as weird and utterly unnecessary as this, yet I knew something was going to occur. And so I could get into exactly what occurred, but I don't see the point in that. That, to me, is asinine. And the way it all transpired and unfolded, his agent not filing the paperwork soon enough with the Broncos, both parties are at fault here. The Broncos could have extended their little window. It didn't have to be filed with the NFL until 4 o'clock. They could have extended their window of 1 o'clock to really give his agent and him some time to get it in. His agent should have got the paperwork in. And so there's no excuse there. The Broncos wanted to cover their end, and so they went ahead and did what they had to do, but they could have extended the deadline. His agent should have had the paperwork in. They had ample enough time to get it done. No excuses there. So both parties were at fault, but at the end of the day, no one wins here. It's a loss for both Elvis Dumervil and the Denver Broncos, because if you're the Broncos, you don't wake up and walk around free agency and find a guy. You don't just stumble upon a guy that'll get you 11.5 sacks. It doesn't work that way. Pass rushers are a very cherished commodity in the National Football League. Everyone wants one. Not everyone has one. They had two. They had one on each side. They were a very good tandem. They were a hard team to stop because this tandem of Dumervil and Von Miller were destructive. And you got 18.5 from Von Miller on one side. You got 11 or 11.5 from Elvis on the other side. We're talking about basically 30 sacks from two guys. You can't replace that kind of production, and they're going to miss Elvis Dumervil. Yeah, I understand you want to restructure the deal. You want to make sure that you get this deal to be cap-friendly for the Broncos. But at the end of the day, it was more important to have Elvis Dumervil on your team. Now, yeah, $12 million is a lot of money to be paying one guy, but he's getting you sacks. There's production there. And so, yeah, you want to work this out. You had an agreement with him. It should have been worked out, but you should have been able to come to this agreement sooner. It shouldn't have come up to the 25th hour where you had to get something done. Your back was against the wall and you had to make a rash decision like getting rid of a guy that's ultra productive in Elvis Dumervil. You just lost yourself a really good pass rusher for no reason. This was so unnecessary. Shouldn't have happened, and the Denver Broncos are a loser in this thing. But Elvis Dumervil and his agent are not, or his former agent, he's fired his agent, or his former agent, Marty Magritte, since then. And so, you know what? He's not absolved from this situation either. He's to blame, Elvis Dumervil and his ex-agent. They should have gotten this thing done. They should have expedited this process. And neither one of these parties involved, the Broncos or Elvis Dumervil, should have waited till this last minute to get this done. If Elvis knew he wanted to stay in Denver, they should have been able to work out a restructured deal where he could have stayed. Look, you're not going to find $8 million on the free agent market. I don't think Elvis Dumervil is going to command that kind of money. And so that's why I feel like he lost in this as well, because you go out on the market and I don't know if someone's going to pay you 8 per. And it's simple as that. Someone's going to pay Elvis Dumervil. They're going to pay him very handsomely. But I don't know if it's going to be 8 per. Simple as that. He's going to go to another team and it won't be the same as it was in Denver. He was comfortable there. He probably lived in Denver. Everything was the way it was supposed to be. Now he's going to have to move. He's going to have to relocate. He's going to get comfortable with a new system, a new scheme, and the players around him. And I don't know if he's going to get $8 million because that's what he was going to get in Denver had he restructured his deal. So I think it's a lose-lose situation for both parties involved. And that was so unnecessary. But let's move on. We spent enough time on Elvis Dumervil. That hurt. If you're the Denver Broncos, that right there, to me, all the moves that you've made in the offseason are wiped away by that whole situation. I felt like that was a catastrophe and it shouldn't have happened. And now your defense went from one of the best defenses to now probably an ordinary defense, because getting pressure on the quarterback changes things in the National Football League. It really does. And you don't have another guy on your team by himself that can get 10.5, 11.5 sacks and make up the difference that you're going to be missing from Elvis Dumervil. Von Miller is a beast. He's a stud on the other end. But the reason he was allowed to do that is because you couldn't really focus in on him alone. You had to divvy up the attention between him and Dumerville. Now, if you don't have that guy on the other side, what's going to happen? So now you're going to have to see what the Broncos do to fill that void left by Elvis Dumerville. You look at another guy that you released, and you released DJ Williams. And here's a linebacker that was solid for you over the last 3 or 4 seasons in the middle of your defense. He's gone now. You're going to have to replace him. I thought that you had guys that really stepped in and played well last year. Some veterans that I was really surprised that played well. Keith Brooking really played well last season. I was pleasantly surprised because I thought he was on his last legs in Dallas. He came over and you didn't ask him to do anything out of the ordinary. You just said, look, on first and second downs, when we feel like the other team is running, we're going to put you in the game, ask you to stop the run. And Keith Brooking was more than up for the task, and he really did a good job. So DJ Williams leaves a void in the middle of this defense. You're thinking maybe the draft is what you want to do to kind of address this. You went out and you got a guy in free agency that could help you in that capacity, but I wouldn't trust that guy as far as I can throw him. And so we'll see what the Broncos choose to do to get a guy in the fold that can come in and help you at the linebacker position. You look at another guy that's gone, L.A.B. Haney. Here's a quarterback that you felt like he's a backup, and I think his role in the league was going to be as a backup. He was never really going to be a starter. And so I don't think he ever had an opportunity in this league to really do anything. And I thought he was just going to be a solid backup. Peyton Manning wasn't going to be there forever. You already have another guy waiting in the wings to take Peyton Manning's job when he does depart. And I thought L.A.B. Haney could have been the backup to that guy when he got his opportunity, but it never materialized, and so he's gone now. And a lot of times teams only like to carry 2 quarterbacks. So L.A.B. Haney, odd man out in Denver, he's gone now. And so we move on, and you look at the guys you were able to sign in free agency, and Luis Vasquez is a guy that you signed from the San Diego Chargers. And teams like to do this a lot. You play against a team twice a year, you see a guy that's really good, and he comes up in free agency, and you get the opportunity to snatch him away, make your opponent in the division a little bit weaker, and strengthen your team at the same time. Teams love to do that. Here's an instance where the Broncos chose to do that. They weakened the San Diego Chargers by taking one of their guards away, one of their better guards in Luis Vasquez, and adding him to their mix. He's going to come in and start at the guard position. He's going to help protect Peyton Manning and hopefully open up some holes in the run game as well. I like this addition. Here's a guy that's going to help you. And I think the Broncos really feel good about their offensive line with the addition of Luis Vasquez. You look at another guy that you were able to add, Wes Welker. This was huge. I talked about the Broncos being submerged in controversy. Here's another instance where they were in the center of attention, getting Wes Welker from the Patriots. This thing was very messy for the Patriots and Wes Welker, but at the end of the day, the Broncos could care less about what happens on that end of the spectrum. They only care about what's going on with them. They feel good, fortunate that they were able to land Wes Welker. The Patriots wanted to be cheap, and they frankly probably didn't even want Wes Welker back. The Patriots said, hey, we got Danny Amendola, a younger Wes Welker. We're going to go with that guy and go in that direction. The Broncos said, fine. We welcome you with open arms. Welcome Wes Welker to the Broncos nation. And he is here. He's going to make an immediate impact on your offense. I felt like this was a move that needed to be done. And Stokely was fine. He was really good. He made some excellent grabs. Him and Peyton Manning make beautiful music together. But Stokely's 35, 36 years old. This guy is a younger version, more athletic, better version of Brandon Stokely. And here's a guy that's going to come in and take your offense to another stratosphere. And I love what you have outside in Decker and in Demaryius Thomas. But this guy inside is going to give Peyton Manning something he probably never had in his career. And that's a dominant slot receiver. He's always had guys out wide. He's always had good tight ends. Never really had that slot guy that could take over a game. Now he's got that guy in Wes Welker. This Denver Broncos offense is going to be pretty tough to stop in the 2013 season. You look at another guy that you were able to go out and get in free agency, Terrence Knight. Here's a defensive tackle, really underachieved in Jacksonville. He's a guy that's solid against the run, can get occasional pressure on the quarterback, but he doesn't give you everything he's got on every given play. And so I think that when he plays at his full potential, when he gives you everything that he has in the tank, he's a really good player. But the instances when he does that, they're too few and far between. And so if you're the Broncos, you got to try to get everything you can out of Terrence Knight. This could be a good solid pickup for you. You did bring Dickerson back, so he's just going to add to the defensive tackle mix that you already have. You look at another guy that you were able to go out and get, and this was what I was talking about earlier when I said you added another linebacker. You added Stuart Bradley, and he really underachieved in Arizona. They cut him loose. He did not work out. They signed him to a lucrative free agent deal a few seasons ago in Arizona. Did not work out. So now he was able to hit the market. Now he's in Denver, and it's a fresh start for him. He needs to make this work out. And so you're going to get a hungry Stuart Bradley. Hopefully he comes in, stays healthy, and can produce for you at the linebacker position. So now you look at guys that were re-signees in Denver, and I just talked about Kevin Vickerson. You have him back at defensive tackle for you. Another guy you can throw in that mix at the defensive tackle position. Hopefully you get a lot of production out of him. He was solid for you in the 2012 season. You're looking for him to continue to be that way. Add him to the mix with guys like Derek Wolfe, who you drafted last season in the second round, and the aforementioned Terrence Knighting, and you're going to have a formidable defensive tackle rotation. So should be solid for the Broncos in the upcoming season. We'll see how that all works out for them. Look at another guy that they had back, Ryan Clady. They slapped the franchise tag on him. Couldn't work out a deal that was long-term for him. So they said, look, we can't allow you to walk away. You have to be able to protect Peyton's blind side. So Ryan Clady is back in the fold. Solid move for the Broncos. This is a very solid offensive line. They added Vasquez. This should be a very good group up front. You look at the guys that the Broncos lost in free agency, and right now it only stands at one player, Jason Hunter, a linebacker that you guys lost to the Oakland Raiders. Again, here's another instance where a team in the division sees something that you have, likes it, plucks it away from you, adds it to their roster. Jason Hunter gone. I think that he was solid for you, but nothing that you will really miss on your football team. And so he'll be out in Oakland in the upcoming season. And so that's it for the Denver Broncos. A lot of things going on their team positive right now. They had a couple of instances in this week, this first week of free agency, where you say, come on, Denver, what are you doing? This is so unnecessary, especially the Elvis Dumervil fiasco. That should have never taken place. He should still be a Denver Bronco, and that's very unfortunate for both parties involved. You look at the Wes Welker thing, and that's a positive for the Broncos. They want Wes Welker. They got Wes Welker, and so they're happy that it unfolded the way that it did, and they were able to land their guys. So the Broncos look really good. They made some additions to this team to make them even better, and we'll see if they continue to work in free agency to build this team up, and we'll see what they do in the draft. But the Broncos are going to be one of the better teams in the AFC West, as they were a season ago, and they're going to be the favorite in the AFC to get it done and try to snatch away that Super Bowl championship from the Baltimore Ravens. And they're making moves to take steps to get back to the AFC divisional round playoff game, possibly win it and get to the championship game, and then have the outcome be a little bit different for them in the 2013 season. So that's the Denver Broncos in the market. Now we'll be talking about the next team up in this division, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs.
So now we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs here in the market, week in review, week one. And to me, this is the team that has had the best offseason by far. And it's not close. I mean, they're head and shoulders above the rest of the league in terms of the moves that they've made in the offseason to upgrade their roster, to become a better team. They are right now better than they were in the 2012 season, and it's not up for debate. And they haven't played a game on the field, and it doesn't matter. They're better. Simple as that. They upgraded the quarterback position. They got guys back in the fold that they needed to have back. They've acquired a lot of guys via free agency. They have the number one pick in the draft. They're just a better football team. They're sitting pretty right now. I love what the Kansas City Chiefs have been able to do in the offseason. I just love what the Chiefs have done as a whole. I like what they have done with the coaching situation. They've got a new general manager. Everything looks on the up and up for the Kansas City Chiefs. They've done nothing wrong to this point in the offseason. Everything they've touched has turned to gold thus far. Again, you don't win games in the offseason, but you take steps to winning games in the offseason, and they are absolutely building a foundation for having a winning campaign in the 2013 season. Let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, what they've been able to do in this offseason, why they have impressed me so much, and let's talk about all the moves that the Kansas City Chiefs have made up until this point in free agency in the first week, and everything that they've done to really take those steps to challenge the Denver Broncos in this division and get back what they feel like is rightfully theirs, the AFC West crown. So you'll see that I'll be looking off of this here big board with this comprehensive spreadsheet that I put together that has every team in the National Football League listed on it. Among the topics on this spreadsheet are players that were released, free agent signees. Then you have re-signees, the guys that you re-signed to your roster, and guys lost in free agency. So let's not waste any time. Let's talk about what the Kansas City Chiefs have done, because there's a lot to talk about with the Kansas City Chiefs as they've been extremely busy in this offseason. All of it good, none of it bad. They've been very aggressive and made some moves that I didn't know they were going to be able to pull off, but they've done everything the right way. They've done everything that they've needed to have this team in a position to compete right away. Sometimes it's a process when you blow things up and you start over. Not this one. They've hit the ground running in Kansas City, and they've got a lot of things accomplished in a very short time. Let's talk about what the Chiefs have been able to do in the first week of free agency and in the offseason for that matter. So you look at the Kansas City Chiefs. We talk about the players that they have released to this point. Eric Winston, here's a guy that you signed to a deal last year in the offseason. New regime comes in, new scheme. They don't want to pay Eric Winston the kind of money that he was making. They got rid of him. They're going to move either Brendan Albert over to right tackle, or they're going to get another right tackle, and they're going to draft the left tackle in the draft. And it seems like right now, Brendan Albert is going to be slid over to the right side, and they're going to draft a left tackle with that first overall selection in the draft. And so they won't need Eric Winston anymore, so they got rid of him. You look at another move that they made to release a guy in the offseason, and that's Steve Breston. Here's a guy that was solid for you in the slot a couple of seasons ago, was really marred by injuries in the 2012 campaign, wasn't as consistent. He dropped the football quite a bit as well. And so I don't think you'll miss Steve Breston, and he's gone now, and he's going to have to find work elsewhere. And he had chronic knee issues. He went over to Germany to see if he needed to have a special procedure done to really give his knee back the strength that it once had, and he was told that he was okay. So we'll see if Steve Breston is able to find work in the National Football League, but it won't be with the Kansas City Chiefs. You look at another guy that you released, Kevin Boss. Here's a tight end. I've always told people that Kevin Boss has the potential to be a Heath Miller in this league. Problem is, he doesn't have the durability of a Heath Miller. He doesn't have the production of a Heath Miller. He can't stay healthy and stay on the field. If Kevin Boss could stay healthy, we all saw what he did that first time around when the Giants won the Super Bowl in 2007. We saw the plays he was able to make and how he made the Giants feel like Jeremy Shockey was expendable. He was solid. I mean, he was very key and instrumental in them winning that Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. He made some big plays down the stretch in that playoff run, and you saw the potential, but he can't stay healthy. The Chiefs found that out firsthand. They got rid of him. So you look at another guy that the Chiefs cut loose, Matt Castle. Here's a guy that started for you the last 3 seasons. You won a division with Matt Castle his first year, but it went downhill from there. He's a guy that has issues taking care of the football. He's inconsistent. Look, there are a lot of factors as to why Matt Castle didn't succeed in Kansas City. And we could go down and we could list them all, but it's not necessary. He's no longer in Kansas City. It didn't work out. New regime comes in. They get their guy at the quarterback position in Alex Smith. Don't be surprised. They've made another move at the quarterback position. We'll talk about that here in a second. And so Matt Castle wasn't in the plans in Kansas City. He's been released. He's moved on. He's already found a new team in Minnesota. And so best of luck to Matt Castle there. But if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, good riddance. He's gone. We can move on with our next quarterback. And so speaking of which, let's move on to the next category, where we're talking about guys acquired in free agency for the Kansas City Chiefs. And we start with Alex Smith. You just acquired this guy in a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. Thought it was a really good move on the part of the Kansas City Chiefs to go out and get a guy that can change the game for you at the quarterback position. Now, Alex Smith is not a world beater. He is not a top 10, top 15 quarterback in this league. What he is a solid game manager. And I know some people hate to use that term. They hate to hear it if you're a quarterback. That's a solid term. That's a compliment for Alex Smith, because he's not going to turn the ball over. He is going to keep you in the game. He is going to give you a chance to win. If your defense plays solid football, if your running game does what it did last season, you're going to win a lot of games because Alex Smith won't turn it over. He won't lose you football games. And yeah, he can throw the football around. He can make some plays happen. We saw what he did against the Saints in the playoffs 2 seasons ago. We know Alex Smith can get it done, but he's a guy that likes to manage the game, and that is perfectly fine, and I think that's exactly what the Kansas City Chiefs need. That's what they needed last year. Had they had a game manager, a guy that didn't turn it over, didn't try to play outside of himself, and really play within the scheme of the offense, you might have won 8 or 9 games last season. But instead, you had Matt Castle, who was turning the football over left and right, whether he was fumbling, holding on to it too long in the pocket, taking sacks, or just throwing it to the wrong jersey. You turned it over, you lost games last season. You won't have to worry about that with Alex Smith. And so here's a guy that's going to come in, throw for a high completion percentage, be really solid for you. You're going to love Alex Smith. He's going to fit in beautifully in this West Coast scheme that Andy Reid employs, and you're going to win a lot more ball games because Alex Smith is going to take care of the football. So you look at another guy that you were able to get in free agency, Anthony Fasano. You go out to get a tight end. He's solid. Much in the mold of a Kevin Boss. You get rid of one blocking, physical tight end that can catch the football, and you bring in another one in Anthony Fasano, who is much more productive, more durable, a lot tougher. This is a guy that's going to fit in nicely alongside guys like Tony Moyaki in your offense. Think he'll come in, he'll catch some footballs, he'll block, he'll do all the dirty work for you. Anthony Fasano is going to fit in very nicely in Kansas City. You look at another guy that you were able to go get, Chase Daniel. I told you that you went out and addressed this quarterback situation. You went out and got Alex Smith as your starter. Chase Daniel will be backing him up. Don't be surprised if Alex Smith goes down or he struggles a little bit. If Chase Daniel doesn't come in and he didn't get an opportunity to start. This is a guy that was behind Drew Brees. He's another 6-foot quarterback, not very tall, but he's a very accurate passer of the football, and he was really good at the University of Missouri. Hasn't really had a chance in the National Football League, but he learned behind one of the best in Drew Brees, and I'm pretty sure that some osmosis took place in New Orleans where he just learned from Drew Brees, and just by being around him was a better quarterback for it. And so I expect Chase Daniels to be a very solid backup for you in Kansas City and potentially have the ability to start in Kansas City. I think that's a very good move for the Chiefs as well. So you look at another guy on this list, Mike DeVito. That was a huge signing for the Kansas City Chiefs. If you're looking to bolster your defense, stop the run, be stout at the point of attack, Mike DeVito does that for you in a nutshell. The Jets are really lamenting his loss. He was huge in the Jets defense. He's going to come over to Kansas City, hold it down along that defensive line. He's only a 2-down guy. He's not a guy that's going to get pressure on the quarterback on third down. But on first and second downs, he'll put you in a position to put those guys on the field on third and long that can get to the quarterback because he's going to help you stop the run on first and second down. And so Mike DeVito is a huge pickup for the Kansas City Chiefs in free agency. You look at another guy you were able to go out and get, Donnie Avery. Here's a solid pickup, a guy that you can put into the slot. And I thought that you were going to give Devon Wiley a shot, a guy that you drafted out of Fresno State a season ago. But looks like you're more comfortable with going out and getting a guy like Donnie Avery and sticking him in the mix. Now your receiving corps looks really promising. You have Dwayne Bowe back, a guy you were able to re-sign to a long-term deal finally. You got John Baldwin on the other side. You're really looking for big things from John Baldwin. He hasn't played to his potential yet. Maybe now with Andy Reid there, he'll start to flourish. And then you stick Donnie Avery in the slot. This could really be a solid receiving corps in Kansas City. Now you look at another guy that you were able to go out and get, Sean Smith. And look, this is a long list of guys that the Chiefs went out and get. I told you, the Chiefs were not bashful in the offseason. They have been very aggressive in free agency, and for good reason. This is a team that is ready to take the next step immediately. They don't want to wait and turn this into a process of rebuilding. They want to start winning immediately. They want to challenge for the division crown. And moves like this, going out and getting Sean Smith, huge in the landscape of things in Kansas City. So you looked at the Broncos and you watched them go out and get Wes Welker. So what do? You answer that. You counter that move by going and getting Sean Smith, another corner. You already had Donta Robinson. You already have Brandon Flowers. You add Sean Smith to the mix. All of a sudden now you have 3 really good corners that can cover anyone in the National Football League. Now the Kansas City Chiefs look like a defense that's going to be back to the form that they were in 2011 when they had one of the best passing defenses in the National Football League. And so here's a guy that's going to add to it. I think he's a young budding star at the cornerback position. He's long, he's 6'3", he's athletic, he's physical at the line of scrimmage. You're going to love Sean Smith. And he signed a 3-year deal, so he's relatively young. You could get the best out of Sean Smith right now. We'll see what you're able to do with him in the near future. And also you signed a guy, Jeff Schwartz. Here's a tackle that's going to come in, probably be a rotational depth guy for you on this offensive line. You can never have enough warm bodies on the offensive line. Jeff Schwartz is going to come in and help you in that capacity. And so you look at another guy that you were able to go out and get also in the form of Donta Robinson. And so you just look at what the Chiefs were able to do in free agency, getting Donta Robinson, getting Sean Smith, getting Donnie Avery, getting Mike DeVito, all these guys that you went out and got to really help your football team. I mean, you were active, you were busy. I don't think you really overspent for any of these guys. And so the Kansas City Chiefs, to me, by far, has had the best offseason of any team in the National Football League. Not just in free agency, but I'm talking about the whole offseason as a whole. Going out and getting Alex Smith. I mean, you just really have done so much to help this team in the near future. So now let's talk about guys that you were able to re-sign. And you re-signed Dwayne Bowe. That was huge. You needed to get him back. It allowed you to not slap the franchise tag on him and use it on the next guy that you were able to retain, Brendan Albert. Here's a guy that was your left tackle last year. You're having ideas of grandeur of moving him over to the right side, and it looks like that's going to come to fruition with your number one overall draft pick probably being a left tackle. You're probably going to slide him over to the right side and really have a solid offensive line. And so look out for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're really making all the right moves, pressing all the right buttons in the offseason. Again, you're hoping this all translates to wins on the field. You can't tell right now if it will or not, but it looks like it's very promising right now for the Kansas City Chiefs. And you look at players that they lost in free agency, no news there. No guys they have lost in free agency to this point. Now, that's probably slated to change as we move on in the process. But right now, the Kansas City Chiefs are clean in that department. They have released some guys that will find homes, but that doesn't count as losing guys in free agency. They're no longer a part of your franchise. We're talking about guys that have a chance to be re-signed with your team. You haven't cut them loose yet. They're just on the roster, but they have the ability to go seek employment elsewhere. You haven't had anyone sign anywhere else, so the Chiefs are sitting pretty right now. They're one of the most aggressive teams in all of the National Football League in terms of free agency right now, and they're the best to me in this division, in the AFC West. They're getting it done, and I absolutely love with a capital L what the Kansas City Chiefs have been able to do in free agency and in this offseason, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs in the market.
Oakland Raiders.
Welcome to the market. You're in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me, and we're here to talk about the Oakland Raiders. Here's a football team that has not been overly aggressive in free agency, but they've been aggressive enough, and they're still dealing with the mess and the cap situation that the late, great Al Davis left them in. And so a lot of changes still left to be made. They're still trying to overhaul this roster, get from under some bad contracts that were signed in the past. And so they're cleaning up the books and getting rid of a lot of dead weights, a lot of things that have to occur in Oakland. Few steps have to be taken backwards for them to actually move forward. And so addition by subtraction sometimes is what you need to really take those steps. And so the Raiders are doing a lot of that right now. Guys that were mistakes from the past regime and guys that have been there past their prime and guys that have been in Oakland for a very long time and have that losing culture mentality. They have to get rid of some of those guys. You know, everyone in this facility isn't equipped with the mental state of a team that wants to start winning football games. And so you got to get rid of the guys that frankly can't help you or aren't the guys that fit in your system or fit what you're trying to do. It's still kind of a head-scratching ordeal in Oakland because you look at some of the releases that they made and they make sense, some more than others. But then you still look at some of the guys that are around and you're like, why is this guy still there? And not because of the talent or lack thereof or anything like that, but this guy's making a lot of money. He's not in the prime of his career anymore. This guy's a malcontent. And so you're asking yourself, well, if you're cutting these guys loose, why not cut these guys while you're at it? But at the end of the day, if you're a Raiders fan, you just have to believe. You have to trust in your new regime. You have to trust in the plan. Whatever it is. You may not even know what it is to this point. And sometimes it's hard, but you have to just blindly trust what's going on in Oakland, because for too long you've been too quick to make rash decisions and get rid of guys and have to start all over again. And when you keep starting over, you never really build anything that has substance to it. You keep starting over, and there's no way you can build a winner. You have to just go in one direction and go full speed in that direction. When you keep stopping, going in reverse, parking, staying in neutral, and then trying to go forward, it's like you're climbing up a hill, but you're going down an escalator at the same time. So it's like you're never really moving upwards. It's like you're just running in place. And so the Raiders, they just need to stay the course. And so I feel like a lot of what they've done in this offseason signals a change in Oakland. And we'll talk about it here in a second. But this is the comprehensive spreadsheet that I put together on my big board that you see before you that has every team in the National Football League in it. And I'm going to use this list to talk about the Oakland Raiders. And among the topics on this list are players released, players signed in free agency. Then you have your re-signees, guys you re-signed to your roster. And last but not least, guys lost in free agency. So let's talk about the Oakland Raiders and what they've been able to do in this offseason. And I'll be using this spreadsheet and my big board to talk to you about the Raiders for the duration of this segment. So let's talk about the Raiders and the players that they've released to this point. And you look at some of the guys they released. Darius Hayward-Bay. Not a big Darius Hayward-Bay fan. Never have been, never will be. I think he's a guy that you drafted way too high. Another one of those Al Davis mistakes that set you back. When you have a top 10 pick, you have to hit a home run. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if you don't hit a home run with a guy, it's okay as long as that guy was A, your guy, and B, he was a top 10 talent. Darius Hayward-Bay was never a top 10 talent, and I don't think he was ever the guy that everyone in that organization wanted. He was the guy that Al Davis wanted, and so I thought that he was a monumental mistake. You can't pick a guy like this at number 7 or number 8 or number 9 or number 10. I believe he was the 7th pick in the draft. You can't pick this guy at 7. Simple as that. And you had a chance to get a guy like Michael Crabtree. You passed on him for Darius Hayward-Bay. You paid for it. Now you're finding out that, hey, look, new regime is here. He's a guy that's not very good. He doesn't bring a lot to the table. They cut him loose. I think it's a good move. Move on. You look at another guy that was released. This one was kind of a surprise to me, Michael Huff. Really didn't see this one coming. They just re-signed Michael Huff 2 years ago in the offseason. I thought he'd be around for a while. He seemed like a core Raider. I really didn't see this one coming. This one kind of blindsided me. Again, he hasn't done anything for you that stands out. You can't remember a signature play from Michael Huff. He was the number 7 or 8 or 5 pick in the draft. Again, another top 10 pick that was wasted. But he was a top 10 talent at the time you drafted him. And so this one is excusable. And he's been solid. It's not like he's been horrible. He hasn't been Darius Hayward-Bay bad. He's just been solid. But when you pick in the top 10, you're looking for a playmaker. You're looking for a Pro Bowler. You're looking for an all-pro player. He was none of those things. And so Michael Huff is gone out of the Oakland Raiders organization. Here's another guy that you signed in the offseason last year that you thought was going to come in and fit right into what you wanted to do, and that's Dave Tollefson. He didn't work out, though. Thought he was a guy that was a hybrid out in New York for the Giants. I thought he was a guy that could come in and get some pressure on the quarterback for you. I thought that he was in New York in a limited role, and he played really well. And I thought if given the opportunity to play more, given more exposure, given more playing time, maybe he'd produce even more. I was wrong. And so it didn't work out in Oakland. Now he's gone. And look, that's another sign of a franchise that's starting to get it. You made a mistake last year by signing this guy. You cut him loose. No harm, no foul. So you move on to guys that you signed in free agency. And this is what I talked about when I said the Raiders are going through changes. Let's talk about these guys, and then I'll explain to you what I see here from these signees. You look at the first guy you signed, Nick Roach. Here's a linebacker that you got from the Chicago Bears. He's a solid outside linebacker, has been for the Bears for a while now. And so you're getting him, you're throwing him into the mix. You'll see what you get out of Nick Roach. He's a solid linebacker. Again, not a difference maker, not a playmaker, just a solid linebacker, and the Raiders have to start building their roster with a lot of solid guys. So Nick Roach is going to help you in that capacity. You look at another guy you signed, Pat Sims, defensive tackle. He was a rotational depth guy in Cincinnati. You're going to look for him to come in and help bolster your defensive tackle position. You lost a guy like Desmond Bryant in free agency already to the Cleveland Browns. You lost a guy like Matt Shaughnessy to the Arizona Cardinals. And so your defensive line is being plucked from and damaged left and right. So here goes a guy like Pat Sims to replenish a little bit of what you lost along that defensive line. So you're looking for Pat Sims to come in and really bolster this defensive tackle position. And hopefully he'll be able to come in and play really consistent football for you at the defensive tackle position. Look at another guy that you signed up in free agency, and that's Kaluka Maivia. And here's a guy that was in the Browns organization, played for them, started for them, was very solid for the Browns. Again, another guy just like Nick Roach, not going to stand out, not going to make a lot of plays. To me, it's another Miles Burris in my estimation. Another guy that's going to be solid, not going to stand out, not going to make a lot of plays, but he's going to be solid and he's going to do his job. He's going to be where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. If a guy runs by him, he's going to make a tackle. And look, Kaluka Maivia is a solid linebacker, but he's not going to make a difference. But again, the Raiders have to start building their roster with a lot of solid guys. And then you try to hit home runs. You can't hit a lot of home runs when you're the Raiders. You don't have a lot of cap space. You're trying to build this thing from the ground up. You got to get solid guys to fill out your roster and then hit the occasional home run. This guy's a single. And there's nothing wrong with hitting singles. Much like Nick Roach, another single. Keep compiling these singles. You'll eventually score runs. And then you'll set yourself up to hit that big home run down the road. So you add a guy like Kaluka Maivia. That's a solid addition. You look at another guy that you added into the mix. And that's Jason Hunter. Here's a linebacker that you signed from the Denver Broncos. You plucked him away from their roster, added him to yours. Here's a guy that can come in, help you on special teams, help you in the linebacker position. And so, again, another linebacker in the mix. Do you see the theme here? I'm not done yet. You added another linebacker. The just released linebacker from the Miami Dolphins, Kevin Burnett, is now an Oakland Raider. He had one of his most productive seasons of his career in 2012. So you're getting a guy that's playing really good football. And so Kevin Burnett is going to come in. I think he's going to be the leader of your linebacking corps. He's going to come in. He's a veteran. He's a leader. He knows how to get it done in the National Football League. To me, your best signing to date in this offseason in free agency. That's a huge pickup for the Oakland Raiders. Now, what I talked about with the changes to the Raiders, your head coach, Dennis Allen, 3-4 coach in Denver. He comes over to Oakland. In your first season, you play a 4-3 defense. He's a guy that I think he wants to get back to playing a 3-4 defense. These moves you've made in the offseason smells like a 3-4 defensive change. Because what do you need in a 3-4 defense more so than any other position? Linebackers. I just told you the Oakland Raiders made 5 moves in the offseason. Guys that they signed in free agency. 4 of them were linebackers. If you're playing a 4-3 defense, you don't need that many linebackers. You already have guys like Miles Burris, guys like Rolando McClain still on your roster right now. Now, I don't know how much longer Rolando McClain is going to be on your roster, but you still have guys on your roster right now at the linebacker position. So you lose Phillip Wheeler in free agency. You still got Miles Burris here. Why would you need this many linebackers unless you were making the change, the switch to the 3-4 defense? That's what it sounds like. In the 3-4 defense, you need linebackers. And that's what it sounds like you're doing. Acquiring guys that can help you jumpstart the switch to a 3-4 defense. It looks like it on paper. You can't deny the fact that the Oakland Raiders are going out and snatching up every linebacker that they possibly can on the free agent market. And so that smells like a defensive philosophy change from a 4-3 defense to a 3-4 defense. And keep in mind, your defensive coordinator, a.k.a. your head coach, Dennis Allen, is a guy that is a 3-4 defensive coach. And so don't be surprised if the Raiders have a new look on defense in the upcoming season. Look at the guys that you were able to re-sign on your roster. And I like one of them. I don't care for the other one too much. Phillip Adams is a guy that I think is a very young and very athletic and talented corner. I actually like Phillip Adams a lot. I thought that he was very aggressive and played well in stretches in the 2012 season. And he's a guy that, with some more development, I think could be really good for you at the corner position. Corey Francis, on the other hand, I could care less about. I really don't think that this guy is that good. He's a solid returner, I guess. And so if nothing else, I guess he can be a guy that can handle your special teams return duties for you. Again, when you don't have a lot of money, you don't have money to spend on guys, you got to take what you can get. Here's a guy that you decide to bring back, and he's also a guy, I guess, that you can throw out there at the cornerback position. So I guess Corey Francis is a solid signing for you, but I really don't care too much for Corey Francis as a player, but I do like Phillip Adams. You were able to re-sign both of those guys. Look at the players that you lost in free agency. And it seemed like everyone was picking off the Oakland Raider tree. My gosh, you guys lost a lot of pieces, and all the ones worth having in free agency. I mean, teams were waiting to start picking off of your roster, and at the time, you were helpless. You couldn't do anything about it. You hadn't made any moves yet to really shed yourself of dead weight to get the cap space and breathing room that you needed to kind of re-sign some of these guys. But some of these deals that they received, you weren't going to be able to contend with anyway. I mean, the deal that Desmond Bryant got in Cleveland, asinine. No way you were going to be able to match that. What Philip Wheeler got in Miami, you couldn't touch that if you wanted to. And so look at these guys that you lost in free agency. You lost Desmond Bryant. We just talked about him to Cleveland. That's a huge loss. That was a guy that was a very good defensive tackle. He led your team in sacks a season ago. So that's going to hurt your defensive line in the 2013 season and moving forward. Look at another guy you lost, Philip Wheeler, your most productive linebacker on your team. Might have been your best player on the defensive side of the football last year. He's a physical, instinctive linebacker that I thought was really running around making plays for you. He's gone now. He's in Miami. That's another loss. But you've signed so many linebackers that I feel like it's okay. It's a loss that you can deal with. You look at another guy that you lost in free agency, Matt Shaughnessy. Here's a guy on that defensive line, solid, stops the run, can get to the quarterback sometimes, had 3 sacks for you last year. So that's another guy that you're going to miss that was able to get to the quarterback and do some things for you in that capacity. You look at another guy you lost, Mike Goodson. Here's a running back, versatile, can return the football for you in the return game, can catch the football out of the backfield, can run the football, has some fumbling issues. He's a guy that's very replaceable. I don't think you're going to lose any sleep over losing Mike Goodson, but again, another guy that's gone. He moved on to the New York Jets. You look at another guy that you lost in free agency, Brandon Myers. Here's the tight end that really stood out for you. And again, it seems like you've been churning out tight ends of late. You lost Zach Miller. Brandon Myers steps up. He's now gone. Someone else is going to step up and have to fill that void now. We're going to see what the Raiders do to address that situation, whether it be via the draft or you go out here in this tight end market and go get a guy like Benjamin Watson to come in and fill in that void that can help you really take that next step offensively. You're going to need a tight end because it seems like in Oakland, the tight end seems to be the quarterback's best friend, and Brandon Myers got a lot of catches because no one else was open and he was just there. And so you're going to need someone to fill in for Brandon Myers. He was a big part of your offense in the 2012 season. And so those are the Oakland Raiders and their offseason moves in a nutshell. And so the Raiders did a lot of things to really help their team in the 2013 offseason to this point in the first week of free agency. They got a lot of work to do still, but as you can see, they're starting to build something, and you see that they went out and got a lot of linebackers. That says to me 3-4 defense. It has it written all over it. But again, we'll see what the Raiders decide to do defensively. We'll see what they decide to do offensively. Will Carson Palmer be a part of the future? Will Terrell Pryor get a chance to start? We'll see what happens in Oakland. There's a lot of different dynamic and moving parts going on in Oakland right now. Free agency is nowhere near over. The Raiders still have a lot of moves to make. They have some money to spend, and they're looking for some deals. They'll have an opportunity to get guys on the cheap below market value coming up here in the next 2 weeks in free agency. Expect them to be players in that period of free agency, and I also expect the Raiders to be very sound in their draft strategy as they have guys that are very versed in getting it done in the draft. So let's see what the Raiders do here in the upcoming weeks, but that's the Raiders week 1, week in a review for free agency in the market. Now we're going to wrap up this division with the last team in the AFC West, the San Diego Chargers.
San Diego Chargers.
So we're back in the market. We're here with the San Diego Chargers, the last team in the AFC West, and it feels so brand new in San Diego right now. And it's refreshing if you're a San Diego Chargers fan. It's a breath of fresh air. It really is. I mean, gone are the days of A.J. Smith and Norv Turner and that whole regime. It was stale. It was old. It wasn't fresh anymore. It was time for a change. And the Chargers They're in rebuilding mode. Let's face it, if you're a Chargers fan, that might not be the term that you want to hear, but that's what it is right now. This is a thing that needed to be blown up, and you need to really start anew. Start from the ground up, get a new foundation, and build this thing up all over again. And that's what you're in the process of doing right now. And you have the right guys in place, in the new GM, Tom Telesco, and the new head coach, Mike McCoy, that are going to help you take those steps to get back to where you want to be. And it's a process. Keep that in mind. And so you're going to have to take little baby steps, and it's okay. Everything you do from this point on should have meaning, should have a purpose. Every signing, every release, everything you do should have a meaning behind it. There should be no more moves done in vain. And for too long, it seems like over the last 2 or 3 seasons, a lot of things were being done in vain. A lot of things you saw being done, you were just like, why is that happening? Why are we doing this? That could have been avoided if we would have just did X instead of Y. And so now you don't have to worry about those things. You're starting over. You've got guys with a plan. I love Tom Telesco and what he's doing. I love some of your off-season moves thus far. I'm really pleased with a lot of the moves you've made in free agency. And so I think that the Chargers have a good handle of what they want this team to look like. And again, it's going to be a process. All the pieces of the puzzle aren't going to just lock into place immediately and you're going to take off, hit the ground running. But I like to say this about the Chargers. Even when you're bad, your worst is 7-9. But I will say this, and this is a change from the way it used to be in the AFC West. This division actually looks like it could be really good this season. And you know what you have in the Broncos. The Chiefs look like on paper right now they're going to be a tough team. You beat them twice a season ago. Don't know if you're going to be able to handle the Kansas City Chiefs as handily as you did in the 2012 season. The Raiders are going to improve whether you believe it or not. And so it's not going to be a walkover and a pushover in this division. You're not going to be able to beat up teams in this division and get you 4 wins like you did last season. You won 7 games. 4 of them were in the division, 2 against the Raiders, 2 against the Chiefs. You won't be able to do that this season. You're going to actually have to go out and beat these teams in your division. And so maybe 7-9 won't be realistic. Maybe this is a 6-10, 5-11 football team. Maybe you're a surprise team. You do some things in the offseason here in free agency. You make some moves. You make some good, shrewd moves in the draft. And all of a sudden, you win 9, 10 games and make it to the postseason in 2013. Who knows? All I know is the San Diego Chargers are starting over. They're building this thing up from the ground, and that's a good thing if you are a San Diego Chargers fan. Let's talk about what the Chargers have done to this point. I'll be using my trusty, handy-dandy big board. As you see in front of you, I've put together a comprehensive spreadsheet with all the teams in the National Football League on it. And I'll be going over all the teams in the National Football League. And today we're talking about the San Diego Chargers and the AFC West. And so among the topics on this spreadsheet will be players released. You also talk about free agent signees. You talk about re-signees, the guys that you re-signed to your roster. And then last but not least, guys lost in free agency. So let's talk about the San Diego Chargers, some of the moves that they've made in the offseason to this point in the first week of free agency. Also, we'll be using my handy-dandy trusty board with the spreadsheet that I've created to talk to you about the San Diego Chargers for the duration of this video. So let's talk about the Chargers and what they've done in releasing players. And they've released quite a few players. But again, when you get a new regime, normally a purging takes place thereafter. You start turning over this roster. Again, a lot of dead weight, a lot of guys that you came into this roster, were there before you got there, and you really don't see the need for them being there now that you're there. And so guys are released. Guys are traded. Guys are cut loose. And that's what you're seeing with a lot of these releases. Guys that you either don't see eye to eye with the amount of money that they're making and the production you're getting from them on the field, or just simply put, they don't fit what you're trying to do and they don't fit what you think a San Diego Charger is supposed to look like. And so here are some of the guys you cut loose. Antonio Gray. I think this is a very talented guy that sometimes isn't mentally focused enough. Sometimes I think he's more focused on how his hair looks and the haircut and the color that he has in his hair than he is about the play on the football field. If he stays healthy, if he focuses on the task at hand and gives you everything he has every single play, I think Antonio Gray is a really solid player in the National Football League. He's already found a home with the Jets. He's no longer going to be a San Diego Charger. You look at another guy that's gone, Randy McMichael. Solid tight end. His best days are behind him. You had Randy McMichael in the fold here in San Diego behind Antonio Gates. It's time for a new regime in San Diego. Time for a new, fresh start. Randy McMichael wasn't a part of that. He's gone. He's moving on. You look at another guy that you got rid of, Atari Bigby. And I thought he was going to come in and be a really good piece across from Eric Weddle. I thought he was going to fit in nicely. I thought he was very different from what Eric Weddle is. Eric Weddle is a very versatile safety that can hit you, but yet can play in coverage and space, can make plays on the football. Atari Bigby isn't a guy that's going to attack the football like Eric Weddle is, but he's a guy that can hit someone, that can be an enforcer across the middle, can be an in-the-box safety. I thought he was going to fit in better in San Diego. I was wrong. And so he's been solid for you, but he could have been better. He's going to be moving on, looking for employment somewhere else. Look at another guy that you got rid of, Takeo Spikes. He's a veteran leader, a veteran presence along this team that he frankly just wasn't in the plans. Simply put, again, it was a mutual agreement to split apart. They talked to him. They said, look, Takeo, we love what you've done for this franchise. We think you can still play, but we're going in a different direction, and we're going to give you a chance to test the free agent market. And so he's gone as well. So you look at the guys that you signed in free agency, and this is a really good group of guys that you're bringing in. Again, a change from what the old regime was doing. And look, we can badmouth A.J. Smith all you want. I thought he drafted a lot of good quality players in his tenure in San Diego, but some of the moves he made in free agency weren't the best, especially last year when you went out and got guy after guy. And I talked about earlier where you guys made some head-scratching moves, when you made some moves that you just felt like, what was the point of that? Well, I think they were made in vain. I thought that's what your free agency class looked like a year ago when you went out and got Robert Meacham and you got Eddie Royal and those guys. I felt like you made a lot of moves in vain last season. These moves, however, are not going to be in vain. These are some really good players that can help you immediately. Let's talk about them. Derek Cox, right off the bat, you hit a home run. This is a guy in Jacksonville that was a really solid corner. Has some issues with durability sometimes. If he can stay healthy, you got yourself a number one right here. You got rid of Anton Cason. He's not going to be back. You got rid of Quentin Jammer, longtime corner out there for you. He's not going to be back. So you need a number one corner. Derek Cox is going to fill that void, and I think he's going to fill it very well. You look at another guy that's going to help you immediately, Danny Woodhead. Here's a guy, he's a jitterbug. You've been missing a guy like Danny Woodhead ever since the departure of Darren Sproles. Now you have a guy that's going to come in, he's going to catch the football out of the backfield, he's going to be a menace on third downs. It's 3rd and 6, you dump it off to Danny Woodhead out of the flats on a 2-yard pass, he gets you 10, you move the sticks. He's going to be a slithery guy that you're going to put out there. It's going to cause problems for opposing defenses. This is a great move for you, and a guy that Phillip Rivers has been missing ever since he lost the likes of a guy like Darren Sproles in that offense. Here's another guy that you went out and signed, Chad Reinhardt, and you lost Luis Vasquez to the Denver Broncos, a team in your division, so that one kind of hurt. But now you replace him with a guy like Chad Reinhardt. Here's a mauler, a plotter, a guy that's a very physical guard on the interior of your line. He had issues staying healthy in Buffalo a season ago, but he's going to be solid for you. If he can stay healthy, you're going to like the production you're going to get out of Chad Reinhardt. You look at the next guy you signed, and this is a very interesting sign. I like this. I like this a lot. Here's a little-known commodity, John Phillips, backup tight end, Dallas Cowboys, very athletic, and sneakily athletic. A lot of people think that he's just a regular blocking tight end. He's not going to catch the football. You can throw him the football. He can make some plays for you in the passing game. Not only can he block, but he can catch the football. He's a big, tall guy. He can get it done. He's going to fit in nicely in San Diego. I think he's going to be a nice change from a guy like Dante Rosario, a guy like Randy McMichael. I think he's going to be a nice breath of fresh air, a nice change from those guys. He's going to come in, and he's going to help you in the passing game as well as in the run game too. So I think this is a very nice signing by the San Diego Chargers. Again, another sign that you guys get it. Your GM, Tom Telesco, your head coach, Mike McCoy, are looking for certain guys to come in and help this team And that's a really good signing in John Phillips. You look at the guys that you were able to re-sign and keep on your team. Nick Novak came in, kicked field goals for you last year, did a really good job. He's going to be back in San Diego. You look at another guy, Ronnie Brown. I spoke about this when I was talking about the San Diego Chargers in the market and what they needed to do going into free agency. They said you had two running backs that were up in free agency. You had Ronnie Brown and you also had Jackie Battle. And I said, look, you don't need both of them. Pick one, bring them back, let the other one walk away. And I told you I really thought that the one you needed to have back was Ronnie Brown because I felt like he added different dimensions that Jackie simply doesn't. I thought that Ronnie Brown was really instrumental in you really doing some things in the passing game. I thought he was good for you on third downs. He caught the ball out of the backfield a lot for you last season. He ran the football for you. I thought he really stepped up when you had some injuries, really hurt you like Ryan Matthews going down. I thought he stepped in and did a nice job. And I said, if you're going to keep one of these guys, it needs to be Ronnie Brown because he adds more to your offense than Jackie Battle does. And you kept Ronnie Brown, 1-year deal. He'll be back in the 2013 season. I think that's a very solid move for the San Diego Chargers. Look at another guy that you brought back, Richard Goodman. Really don't know what value he adds. He's a guy that can run. He's fast. He's a receiver that maybe you can have in the return game as well. But I need to see more out of Richard Goodman for me to feel like he adds value to this team. But apparently Mike McCoy and that staff saw something in Richard Goodman that says he needs to be back in San Diego, so he will be back. You look at who you lost in free agency to this point, and you really haven't lost that many guys. You only lost 2 to this point right now, and so we know that's subject to change. There's going to be other guys out there that you have a chance to sign that you haven't, that's going to walk away and sign with other teams. But right now, it's Luis Vasquez to the Broncos. And again, you replaced him with Chad Reinhardt, so we'll see how that goes. And you lost your cornerback, Anton Cason, to the Arizona Cardinals. This is the guy you didn't want back. You wanted him to walk away. You replaced him with Derek Cox, so I don't really feel like you've lost anything. If anything, you gained something in the form of Derek Cox. And so I think you're fine there. And so you really haven't had guys walk away from your team thus far in free agency. And so I like what the Chargers are doing. Again, it's a process. You got to put this thing together one piece at a time, and you're doing that in free agency. And it's not done yet. We still haven't gotten into the latter stages of free agency when guys become available for a lot cheaper of a price. And so expect the Chargers to get in on some of that action as well. And also the Chargers need to be very smart in the draft. Draft guys that fit what Mike McCoy wants to do offensively. Get guys that fit what you want to do defensively as well. Get guys that fit what you want to do with your new direction. And I think that's what the Chargers will look to do in the draft. That's what they'll look to do with the remaining time that they have in free agency. And I think that they've done some good things in the initial stages in this first week of free agency, and I like what the Chargers have done. But again, if we're talking about this division as a whole, no one's had a better offseason. No one's had a better start to free agency than the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's not close. It's not a competition. The San Diego Chargers haven't done a bad job. Neither have the Denver Broncos. Oakland's doing what they can do with what they have in limited resources. But for my money, the Kansas City Chiefs are head and shoulders above not only the AFC West, but the rest of the league. They've really done a great job to upgrade their roster and give themselves a chance immediately in the 2013 season. And that's going to do it for the AFC West as a whole. In review, in the market. Have a good one.
The market.